Hello, it's Monday, the 22nd of August, and welcome to your 5-minute briefs from Seoul. I'm your host, Hee-Jin Koo. In our second installment for this month, we take a look at the aftermath of the heaviest rainstorm in more than a century that drowned most of South Korea's central region and the government's efforts to stabilize prices in its wake. We also review the final survivors of the battle in the early morning food delivery market in Korea, overseas investments in the auto industry, as well as round 2 of the retro snacks fever that is sweeping the country. Let's begin our 5-minute roundup. The heaviest downpours in more than a century battered capital Seoul as well as nearby cities of Gyeonggi and Incheon earlier this month, leaving 13 dead and 6 others missing. Seoul and the greater metropolitan area, home to some 26 million people or half of the nation's population, saw peak rainfall reach 141.5 millimeters per hour, breaking all records for the 115 years that the nation began compiling relevant data. Some 1,500 people were left homeless, while about 4,800 others had to temporarily evacuate. According to the Central Disaster and Safety Countermeasures Headquarters, the 4-day rain front that drenched the central regions flooded about 3,820 homes and stores, 126 schools and 80 military facilities. More than 1,000 hectares of farmland and some 100,000 cars and vehicles were submerged, with flash floods forcing drivers to abandon their sedans in the middle of the waterlogged streets of affluent Gangnam and other areas south of the Han River. The South Korean government is currently compiling the extent of damages and plans to offer disaster relief to bereaved families of the victims, as well as those who were left homeless or without their means of livelihood. The Seoul metropolitan government is mulling a $1 billion plan to build massive underground holding tanks to prevent flooding. It also plans to gradually phase out permits for basement residential flats to prevent future casualties caused by rain. And amid concerns that the disaster may accelerate a surge in consumer prices, the South Korean government announced that it will release record stockpiles of food items ahead of the Thanksgiving Chuseok holiday slated for early next month. The government plans to increase supply by temporarily boosting imports and releasing reserves of 20 major Chuseok produce items. It also plans to offer vouchers on agricultural, livestock and fisheries products worth some 65 billion won or $49 million, the largest amount on record. President Yoon Suk-yeol presided over a meeting on the 11th of August and called for ministries to swiftly meet demand for key fruits and vegetables. The government also plans to inject some 43 trillion won in financial aid for small business owners and small to mid-sized firms to ease liquidity around the Chuseok holidays. The move comes amid concerns of a stagflation, an economic slowdown coupled with high unemployment and soaring inflation. Korea Economic Research Institute said in an August 18th report that the factors may prompt an earlier than expected stagflation during the second half of this year. Such jitters prompted local retailers to try their hand at early morning deliveries. Coupang, Curly, and SSG.com stand victorious after round 1 in the bitter war of the overnight produce delivery market, as other retailers quietly abandoned the costly operations. GS Fresh Mall, an online food seller under GS Retail Group, stopped early morning deliveries on the 31st of July, while the nation's largest meal kit provider, Fresh Easy, halted such deliveries 4 days prior. Hello Nature, an online shopping mall for fresh groceries under BGF Retail, and Lotteon, an e-commerce platform under the retail giant Lotte Group, threw in the towel in May and April, respectively. Industry sources say operating costs for dawn deliveries are proving unprofitable, despite a fivefold increase in such orders at online retailers in the past 3 years. Major factors include overtime pay for couriers, as well as expenses for specialized packaging to keep groceries fresh. Coupang, Curly, and SSG.com, which operates the nation's largest discount hypermarket chain E-Mart under the retail giant Shinsegae, have emerged as the clear winners in the market, armed with a solid customer base and their exclusive logistics network. Other remaining contenders are internet platform giant Naver, which clinched a partnership with mega deliverer CJ Logistics, as well as Costco Korea, who are still seeking to make inroads in the market. Meanwhile, South Korean automakers and manufacturers of electric vehicle batteries are aggressively expanding their overseas investments in future-forward technologies in a bid to boost its global market share. Hyundai Motor, the world's third-largest automaker in terms of sales volume, announced on the 12th of August a $424 million investment to build a research center for robots in the US, as well as an acquisition of local autonomous driving startup 42 Dot for 428 billion won, or $328 million. Hyundai Motor and affiliates Kia and Hyundai Mobis will provide funding for the AI Research Center to be located in Boston, Massachusetts, specializing in the research for the development of robots, not only for transportation and logistics, but also services and as virtual assistants. Boston Dynamics, a Waltham, Massachusetts-based robotics designer owned by Hyundai Motor, will likely run the center. Meanwhile, Uracell, an Anglo-Korean joint venture, has partnered with other South Korean companies in a project to build a next-generation secondary battery plant in the Netherlands. Birmingham-based Uracell and its partners are expected to pour some $800 million into the massive plant by 2025, with spending likely to reach $2 billion by 2028 to produce 40 million battery cells per year to meet an ever-increasing global demand. And finally, South Korean snacks and beverage manufacturers have embraced popular characters, both old and new, to appeal to a wider niche market, trying to emulate the startling success of SPC Samnip's Pokemon bread from 6 months ago. Lotte Confectionery announced on the 17th of August that it will release multiple snacks under collaboration with designers of the cartoon characters from Digimon Adventure later this month. This follows a sellout of retro snacks depicting characters from Black Rubber Shoes or Komjong Gomushin, a popular Korean cartoon and animation series from the 1990s, and the more recent Loopy from Pororo the Little Penguin franchise. The Digimon bread in particular contains stickers or seals of one of 182 different types of Digimon from the hit Japanese animation series that aired from 1999 to the early 2000s, triggering nostalgia among consumers in their 20s and 30s, with fond childhood memories of collecting rare Digimon collectible cards. Craft beer maker The Satellite Brewing also released a pale ale in cans depicting the grouchy face of Kogiltong, one of the few adult characters from the hugely popular Korean animation series Dully the Little Dinosaur from the late 1980s and 1990s. The brewer is also hoping that the ale, with tropical undertones of pineapple and mango, as well as the face of the beloved character, will allow beer lovers to sit back and relax at the end of a hard day at the office. That wraps it up for this episode of 5-Minute Briefs from Seoul. This has been Hee Jin Koo for KBSI, wishing you a great week.